Far Cry 3 leaped off the springboard of Far Cry 2 to rocket itself to new levels, an open-world sandbox filled with exploration, explosions, and quotable characters. It also spawned the Far Cry standalone expansion formula, taking the same engine, gameplay mechanics, and assets to create a smaller budget spin-off. And that's how we find ourselves in the neon cyber future as Rex Power Cult, Mark IV Cyber Commando. In a world desperately grabbing onto the coattails of 80s action films and begging them to please never leave, you dive into an alternate past future filled with enough retro sci-fi cheese to satiate any connoisseur of cheddar. Blast your way through this fast-paced action game with a self-aware reverence for retro synth and enough neon to light up a small moon. Dodge laser fire, blood dragons, and look stylish as hell doing it. But is style alone enough to overcome its smaller budget? Hello there, my name is Red and welcome to my series Have You Played It? Each episode diving into a new game you may or may not have played to see if it's aged gracefully or not. So out of nostalgia or curiosity, let's have a fresh look at Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. We begin with retro loading screens and menus, a nice homage and I personally think a rekindling of the love of the retro synth aesthetic. Our new game starts with a classic pixel art introduction to the world. In the future, the late 20th century, nuclear war has washed away society and its innocence. In its place, a cyber warfare wasteland. You're rebuilt as scientists speak lovingly crafted fake science mumbo jumbo. No longer a simple human. You are reborn as Sergeant Rex Power Cult. Part man, part machine, all cyber commando. This intro basically feels like the result of telling someone you have 10 seconds to reimagine the Terminator and using whatever they managed to stutter out as the plot. Even the music is heavily inspired by the classic film.
Cyber heart pumping at 130%. He's a strong one. Upload the program.
The pixel art harkens back to the classic days of gaming and is much cheaper to produce than the fully animated cutscenes of today. It's very much intended to look cheap and basic. You awaken on a helicopter, your bro soldier bro man Spider is with you. Your mission, infiltrate a black sector and retrieve intel. Geneva Convention restrictions are lifted. The hardcore broness continues as you get the stereotypical power surge in the form of a mounted laser gun, backtracked by the song Long Tall Sally by Little Richard, a rather unusual choice. It's not a synthwave song, but it is a classic and somehow still works. From here, your explosive neon work begins. Strafing across the tops of this facility, you blow up and disintegrate the opposition. I personally found it a little hard to see what you're actually doing. It's a pretty big assault to the senses all at once, but simply pointing at anything that moves and exploding the red barrel seems to work well enough. With your war crimes only beginning, another short cutscene sees Rex and Spider giving the classic bro clasp. Oh yeah. You're dropped off to cause some more chaos and once again put back into gameplay. In a humorous stab at first-person game tutorials, you're unable to move. Spider has activated your tutorial mode. With curses on his lips, Rex is forced to go through a sarcastic tutorial making you learn how to hit the enter key, jump, crouch, look around, and then move. It's a fun way to still get the obligatory tutorial while nodding to the player, letting you know they know it's boring. We get our first proper look at the world's aesthetics. Glowing like a Tron film, I think is putting it a little lightly. Ever-present digital lines are on screen, especially highlighted when looking at lights. It's a choice I don't think a major game developer would actually make today. Now able to run with blade hands swinging, you can move ahead as the tutorial continues. As Blood Dragon uses the mechanics of Far Cry 3, you might already be familiar with the mechanics. Silent takedowns can be achieved. Your cyber eye allows you to see and tag enemies. Your skills are ahead of the Far Cry 3's protagonist, as you're already meant to be a skilled warrior. More smiles as the tutorial tells you to throw a D20 to distract enemies, you nerd. The blue neon blood splatters as your cyber knife takes down enemies and you're already able to chain attacks. You can pilfer bodies for cash and cyber hearts. Ammo you pick up automatically. To pilfer the bodies you have to hold the button down, which is something I'm personally not a fan of. I find it very irritating on something you have to do over and over again. It gets tedious rather quickly. Rex, however, revels in the gory pilfering.
Disgusting. I love it.
If his gruff voice sounds familiar, it's because he's voiced by the Terminator star Michael Biehn, who played Kyle Reese in that film. A very intentional and great choice. I do love how the clamber visual cues are neon tubes as well. Up top, you're given a sarcastically large amount of tutorial windows. Firstly, teaching about detection, firing and aiming weapons. A PSA about the tutorials being brought to you by Kobayashi Cyborg Lubricant, lubricating your future. The fact that cover exists. Grenades can be cooked and thrown. Pilfering, again. Another PSA about upgrading to Kobayashi Tutorial Premium and letting them play for you. The weapon wheel, another press and hold to access button, and again, I hate it. Healing, again, hold button. Cyborg points, basically points for leveling up, but more on that later. And a final pop-up to make the patronizing screens go away. But finally, your gun is unlocked and you can cause some havoc. Ahead, you learn how to throw shurikens after a melee takedown, but I screwed up, so I'll do one later. Rex also has some timely pop culture references on his lips.
School's out for summer. School's out forever.
We relearn more of Far Cry 3's basics, deactivating alarms to ensure reinforcements aren't called. You have the choice of sneaking in or simply blasting your way through at this point. The minimap down here contains most of your info, giving you locations of important things as well as how many cyber hearts you have, heals, and your health. You have several weapons at your disposal from the start, basically reskins of Far Cry 3 weapons with some extra flair, all with their own uses and over-the-top draw, holster, and reload animations. Clearing the area, Rex proclaims these people to be Omega Force. You're informed they were Omega Force, but Sloan, their leader, has gone rogue, and it's our mission to find out why. Spider and Rex served under Sloan and can't believe he's gone rogue. A nice, curious hook for the player to investigate. Joining Spider inside, you continue your path of destruction. You confront your first heavy enemy. They take a large amount of fire to bring down, but usually have a more vulnerable spot. The enemy's AI is okay. They serve their purpose as roadblocks well enough. Spider comments they have the Heterodyne 8000 assemblers, something that destroyed all factory jobs in Detroit, really solidifying the rogue Omega Force as the bad guys in the eyes of the hard-working, hard-fighting, all-American Rex power cult. A catwalk ahead lets you get above the enemies, a tutorial on looking for alternate routes and vantage points. A Molotov unit is below. You're told to keep your distance and target their expensive taste in accelerants. Carelessly placed red and neon barrels allow you to explode some bad guys too. I will say Spider's AI seems to leave a little bit to be desired. When cleared, you can also find these crates to pilfer. They're usually filled with ammo and cash. It's here I decide to turn up my field of vision as I find it a little cramped and I come across something that really annoys me. You can't set the FOV to whole numbers. They all end up on weird, non-rounded numbers. It almost feels intentional by the developers. Opening the menu as I did, I also discovered a second annoyance. The first time you open the menu in a new session, the game tries to connect to the Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon servers, which are obviously no longer on. You have to wait staring at this loading menu for nearly 30 seconds before it finally lets you know it can't connect and to try again later. It also does it when first launching the game, but there it's charitably quick. Some more loot can be found on tables to refill consumables. Again, hold to take. Damn you, hold to take. You make your way to find a high orbit red spear. Reaching the console, we get another cutscene. Spider works his magic, but he's unable to stop the security alert. The weapon is getting ready to fire. We learn Spider has a wife and kid back home, so you know he's not making it. Spider goes for the fist jack, because all 80s sci-fi problems are solved with punching. Protecting Spider, we fight waves of troops. The enemies hit pretty hard, even on normal difficulty. You're not as invincible as you'd think being a cyber commando. You're nimble, but taking advantage of cover is a must. Once Spider is done recompiling the motherboard, and no, that doesn't make sense, we get pushed to another cutscene. Spider falls, getting overloaded. The cutscenes are also intentionally awkward, mimicking the pauses often found in older games' voice lines.
Missile launch autonomous! Get to the control plate!
What?
We have to stop that missile. The rush forward begins as we have to reach the lift within 120 seconds. Fight your way through the rather oppressive waves of troops and reach the marker. An action cutscene sees us rushing to the panel, gloriously knee sliding like an all-American hero and punching the panel. Again, solving problems with a fist, and the launch is aborted. Rescue is inbound, but as is tradition, the helo is taken out. I swear helicopter pilot in video games is the worst occupation ever. Rendered unconscious, we awaken later.
Rebooting. Stand by.
They're back online, Colonel.
Thank you, darling.
That's Dr. Darling. Dr. Elizabeth Veronica Darling.
Sloan, it's us. Sergeant Rex Power Colt. Lieutenant T.T. Brown.
I know what happened to your face.
Price of power, boys. She's a mean, demanding bitch. She's a wildcat in the sack.
Sloan fills the role of a big bad evil guy with half Terminator face well. No doubt he'd be played by some form of 80s wrestler were this a movie. Sloan's gone off the deep end, stereotypical 80s bad guy motives, the government's too weak to do what's needed, etc, etc. As you no doubt expected, and because it's kind of tradition, Sloan takes out Spider with the world's mightiest backbreaker. Spider's bandana comically flies into Rex's hand, a memento and reminder of what Sloan has done. Wanting to give Rex a fighting chance, as is the bad guy prerogative of the time, you're knocked unconscious. Awakening to the voice of Dr. Darling, we've been cut off from HQ. She wants to help us as she hates Sloan. Rex is okay with it.
And why should I trust you?
Because I hate Sloan.
Oh. Okay, Doc, what's the plan?
A very creative way to get past the whole I don't trust you stuff if he's just fine with it from the beginning. Left in a blood dragon nest, weaponless, we need to sneak out. You can find a collectible in the cave as well. There are 4 different types: television sets, Dr. Carlisle's notes, VHS tapes, and animals. Each have several weapon upgrades as rewards. A great way to incentivize exploring and searching. I personally find collectibles with no proper reward to be boring busy work, so these do nicely. Walking through the colourful but body-filled caves, we get our first sight of blood dragons. Neon dragons with a bad attitude, but fortunately for us, poor eyesight, which allows us to sneak by them, and this is where cyber hearts come into play. You weren't just collecting them for the psychopathic joy of it, that's just a bonus. They're used to lure blood dragons away. Sneaking by, we see a garrison ahead. Omega Force is taking over and removing the scientists permanently. Our goal is to take down the garrison. This is a standard of Far Cry games, taking down garrisons, being rewarded for doing it quietly and without raising the alarm. The shields protect occupants from blood dragons, but not their laser fire, so we can lure some dragons in. They take out the troops blocking our way ahead. As a blood dragon special, you can lure blood dragons to garrisons, take down the shield generators as a way of claiming the garrisons. On the map, you can find the garrisons and collectibles along with your objectives. Looking to the sky, you can also see the red Omega Force symbols being projected. These are beacons to each garrison. A handy visual cue when running around and adds to the sci-fi aesthetic. You can also find your skills in the menu, but you don't spend points, instead you level up and unlock a linear set of skills. A quick way for a tighter budgeted game that doesn't have the time to develop a proper skill tree to still give you some progress. Now you get a weapon in the form of a bow and arrow, but cyber neon. I take down this tutorial garrison quietly. Running around, you'll definitely notice Rex is much more enhanced than the standard humans of Far Cry, with a higher jump and lightning speed on foot. The garrisons are designed well enough, allowing you to get around with zip lines, alternative routes, and more. The first garrison's pretty easy, and all the occupants take just 1 arrow to drop. You'll notice the Omega Force troops are basically just neon-lit dudes in motorbike gear, a great mirroring of old sci-fi outfits. Their voices are the classic vocoder-filtered voices too.
Sand and water, sand and water. You know what sand and water is? It's called mud.
We take down the garrison and the beacon turns green. Dr. Darling wants to meet us, so we head inside, and the retro cutscenes continue. We learn Sloan drank blood dragon blood, supercharging him, but it had a side effect, causing him to become even more unstable. He has plenty of rockets and payloads enhanced with blood dragon blood, and now a twisted mind. In a genuine laugh-out-loud moment, Dr. Darling offers Rex a refined shot of dragon blood, without the side effects.
No, Doc. No way. I swore an oath to a special lady.
Your wife?
No. Lady Liberty. She taught me that winners don't use drugs.
Dr. Darling informs us Sloan has 3 critical facilities that we need to take down, and thus begins the main storyline of Blood Dragon. When missions are complete, Rex throws the horns, but it's electrified, so it's even cooler. Outside, you'll now notice Friendlies occupy your garrison, nerdier types in more, I'm sorry but this is all they had left at the costume store, outfits. The game plays a lot with the nerd versus bully trope, Rex reluctantly working for the nerds despite his coolness. You now unlock adventures. These are side quests you gain when taking over a garrison and reward attachments for weapons. The first adventure, Save the Nerd, sends you relatively close to rescue a hostage. You need to be unseen or the hostage is toast. Sneak around and take out the rather poorly peripheral visioned Omega Forces. There, I also used a shuriken. Told you I would. Speaking to the hostage unlocks the fast travel mechanic. Now back, the shop is unlocked because yes, you also have to buy the attachments once unlocked. Typical. Using undeniable logic, Rex also proclaims,
If guns make me safe, Bigger guns make me safer.
Now from here, the world is unlocked and you're free to roam, heading out and taking down garrisons, saving nerds and continuing your fight to stop the madman Sloan. Blood Dragon is filled with style, overbright neon covers the island, retro-suited bad guys bleeding cyber blue blood are ready to be taken down. The island is relatively small, there's less side missions and the skill tree is linear, but the retro style, reverence for 80s sci-fi action and a load of making fun of them all rolls together to make a pretty enjoyable experience. There's a pretty great synth soundtrack, cheesy one-liners, and Sergeant Rex power cult is an all-American cliche, spitting out his words through gritted teeth like he's done with everyone and everything.
Bang.
The characters are one-dimensional, the story gets even more ridiculous and it's all just plain stupid fun, because it is really fun. The cutscenes are intentionally cartoonish and meant to look cheap. It's all part of the charm. Showing its age, I personally found the aiming to be a little rough. The aiming just doesn't feel right on mouse and keyboard, like it's still stuffed with console leftovers like smoothing and dampening. I wish there was more side missions and the game feels pretty linear despite being open world. You could argue that's just me wanting there to be more content because I enjoyed it so much. And to be fair, at launch the price tag matched the smaller experience. This wasn't meant to be a full game. Blood Dragon was a small game where the most important thing was the 80s retro aesthetic, followed closely by being as cheesy as a giant fondue fountain, which in the end turns out to produce a pretty fun game. My personal favourite of all the Far Cry expansion type games. So let me know in the comments, have you played it? If not, do you plan on checking it out now? Thank you all very much for watching and don't forget,
Lady Liberty. She taught me that winners don't use drugs.
don't forget to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye for now.